followed by 3 games. I was thinking we could take a look at the Taimanov Sicilian. So basically I was going to use my method that I think is a cool idea. GM games, Taimanov file type PGN, and we can search on there. And with that we can find both, this is from an old program, but an open source piece of data. And then here we have some games out of the Taimanov that were from the U.S. Chess League. So let's take a look. Eric Hansen plays the Taimanov as white, at least sometimes. So let's start with his game. His game, I think, is another very high-level one. We can take a look and yeah, get started on this. We can take this to the analysis board. And yeah, there it is. All right. So Taimanov Sicilian is white. This is Hansen versus Shabalov. Very high-level players, GM-level players, very strong. Hey, good morning, Aphelion. Thanks very much for joining the stream. So yeah, basically here, hey, FIFA boy, how are you? So basically, this is the Taimanov Sicilian. It becomes the Taimanov when with knight e6 paired with e6. Just so we know, Taimanov, e6, d4, pawn takes, knight c6. And then with knight c6, it goes from being a French variation of the Sicilian to a Taimanov variation of the Sicilian. Taimanov variation of the Sicilian is interesting. It's not one that I know extremely well. The open Sicilian lines, this very specific open Sicilian lines, they tend to involve, advancements on the king side. So I'm thinking pushes h4, h5, h6, g4, g5. These are moves that we're likely to see later in this game. But the main idea for white is going to be a quick king side attack, and black is going to start, an attack with 2 pawns against 3. Similar to our lesson yesterday, which was about, it's called the minority attack, when you're fighting with 2 pawns against 3. You have fewer pawns, but you basically can secure an early space advantage. Knight to c6, knight to c3. Knight to c3 is the most common, usually played here. So the knights are developed. Queen to c6, 7 is the most common here, and basically both sides are playing kind of main lines. We're going to be looking at kind of very strong mainline strategy here. And yeah, bishop to e3, a6, queen to d2. Here, basically, black plays his first deviation. In this line, knight to f6 is the most common. That's, out of 3,500 games, that's 3,300 games. I guess that's about 94% of the time, something like that. Basically this bishop e7 is a deviation for white. So bishop e7, or deviation for black, sorry. Castle's queenside, and now this entire game is going to be about white aggressively attacking on the king side. These are both GM level players, so we know, basically it's going to be very hard to kind of come up with a small, it's unlikely to turn into a small tactical error leading to a decisive victory. But we can see basically, at the highest level GM play, white is still aiming at attacking aggressively on the king side. I don't know. I mean, the Taimanov tends to involve attacks on the king side like this. One of the things that we learned a little bit about the Maroczy bind is that the Maroczy bind tends to lead to situations where white is playing in the center or white is playing on the queen side, which is not thematically that consistent with the rest of the Sicilian openings. This kind of non-king side attack. So I'm thinking that the answer is practically, I'm sure the answer is yes. You can start in Maroczy bind and you can start attacking on the queen side, on the king side for sure. Very good question, Ophelia. But the thing is, with that aggressive king side attack. Hey, welcome, Haroop. Thank you very much for joining the stream. So basically, with that aggressive, king side attack, the Maroczy bind becomes less valuable. Since the idea in the Taimanov Sicilian is to start an aggressive king side attack, that basically that Sicilian with the Maroczy bind is a little bit misplaced. It's not bad, it just doesn't pair well with that attack. So the answer is, I'm sure practically you can do it, but you'll basically be using an extra move to play c4 that isn't going into your kingside attack, which needs to be done as quickly as possible. So yeah, b5, king b1. bishop to b7, and basically white's a pawn up here. So better for black. Basically this queenside, this queenside, pawns attack is a, is a strong general idea. This is a good, this is a good idea. Start advancing on the queen side. White has committed to castling queenside here, so it's time for black to basically exert pressure on black to basically exert pressure on the king on c1. But king to b1, bishop to b7. Here, ideas like bishop to f4 can be good. There's multiple basically good plays for white. The light squares for black on the queen side are very weak. So that can be an opportunity to attack. Hey, welcome Sam Sejwani. Thank you very much for joining the stream. This b5 is a bit misplaced. b5 paired with b7 wasn't a great combination for white. Instead, the engine is pushing for standard developing moves like knight to f6. Knight to f6 is good, d6 is good, but basically these queenside extensions here, b5 into b4, that tends to be a little bit premature for white. Anyways, white can't really capitalize, so the eval goes back towards 0. Black finally gets his knight f6 development, which he's delayed for a number of moves, and now white's attacking with the idea that black is about to castle kingside, which he is. Okay, so basically this is worth kind of showing. These are two high-level GMs. I mean, Shabalov is a former U.S. champion, I believe, and Eric Hansen is another high-level GM. So white can basically exert pressure on the king side here. I'm thinking h4, g5, or h5. Basically put pressure on the king side, and things should be pretty good for white. Black can't really continue much with this attack. It's a little bit too disorganized and a little bit under-resourced. This b4 threatening c3, on that this knight can go to e2, knight can go to g3, h4, h5, but basically pressure getting exerted on the king side is gonna basically white is more directly oriented towards attacking on the king side over. Hey, welcome Chess Fanatic. Thank you very much for joining the stream. So yeah, basically comparing the the king side attack, which is basically these pieces are already set up to attack. The rook is already here to attack on the rook file, and this bishop can move to d3 and be a supporting resource for that attack too. The white attack offers more promising chances than the black attack on the queen side. But thematically, this is a great game because it sort of demonstrates, what generally happens in the, it demonstrates what generally happens in the Taimanov Sicilian, which is an aggressive attack by white on the king side and an aggressive attack by black on the queen side. h5, knight to or b4, knight to a4, d5. Black's trying to play to the center. Black's doing all that he can to basically create counterplay so that this kingside attack is, not immediate. G6, pawn takes, h6, and this is an error. So, unlike many high-level GM games, this h6 move is actually a shift in eval by about 2 points. That's big for a GM game. That's big. That's not a that's a pretty big shift. So h6 is really a blunder here. Better for white was g takes f7, rook takes f7, but on h6, black can play knight takes g6, and wow, these games are this is a very volatile game. Knight takes g6, and basically black will be up after this. White will follow up with pawn takes, but black has sort of diminished this this kingside attack. And that's that's a big piece of this game. Basically, if this kingside attack gets dismantled, black can be comfortable playing on the queen side, and pressure. Black will be able to exert pressure on the queen side, but white will be able to basically white will not have the ability to attack aggressively on the king side. So knight g6 really flattens this attack. What was played in the game was f takes g6, a difference of about 5 points. So it's funny, I didn't intentionally choose a game between GMs that was this volatile, but f takes g6 is worse than knight takes g6. Knight takes g6 here, and white's attack is basically concluded. Hey, good morning, Alexandre. Thank you very much for joining the stream. So yeah, so this knight takes g6. This basically concludes White's attack. White has spent many moves moving his pawns all the way up, so to let this attack basically get dismantled by knight takes g6, that's an error for White. Anyways, f takes g6, another error. And now White, with his knight posted on e6, wins a full exchange. I'm thinking it's probably pretty unlikely that this game comes back into Black's territory. It's basically, yeah, no, that's right. I mean, but I agree with that, Aphelion, for sure. But at the same time, those are big shifts for a GM game. When you look at a game like this, with this kind of volatility, you generally don't think of high-level GMs playing against each other. It is a very sharp position, so it's very difficult to get this right. I mean, I'm not saying I would. I definitely would have not gotten this right at multiple places where these guys got this right. But this is a very volatile game where basically the values shift a lot. So, anyways, let's learn a little bit from the Sicilian theory here. It's an open Sicilian with knight to c6. That's the Taimanov, just in case we need to kind of learn the names of the theories here. e4, c5, knight f3, d4, pawn takes, knight to c6. Taimanov comes with knight to c6 and e6. That's how that's defined. So basically, all the players basically play soundly and in main line until Black plays bishop to e7 instead of knight to f6. This is going to transpose into something that's much more common. Again, knight to f6, very heavily focused here. But for whatever reason, Black plays knight to f6 very late relative to theory. Now with knight to f6, we're back to this. Cool. Yeah, no. I think that's right, Alexandre. It's still in the very early stages, but here's the thing. It's really an opportunity, Alexandre. For so long, it took a lot of, it was very complicated to get yourself a FIDE title. But now you can get a FIDE title off of the online arena. So yeah, I think what's actually really interesting is let me see if I can find it. I think it's kind of cool. But basically, the FIDE online arena started advertising on Facebook. Let me see if I can find it for you. But basically, they're FIDE advertisements of the online arena on Facebook. And I think that we're about to kind of have a pretty big expansion in terms of what is on that server. But for right now, you have the opportunity to get the title. So yeah, I think we should. All right, we'll add it. No, you know what? We'll make tonight the celebration theme for Aphelion. But I do think that Aphelion should get a titled stream after him. But yeah, I'll talk with Aphelion to see if he wants that for sure. But anyways, yes, I definitely do think there should be a commemoration stream for ACM. So anyways, that server is pretty basic at the moment, but I get the sense that FIDE's gonna start putting some resources into it. Anyways, you can still get we can still get the FIDE title from it regardless of the interface. But hey, welcome Lauren, thanks for joining the stream. Also, welcome to Anch. Thanks all very much for being here. Knight to f6, basically knight to f6 early in the Sicilian, g4, castles, g5, knight e8, h4, and this shows that in a GM level game, this aggressive attack on the king side is very comfortably played in the in the Taimanov Sicilian. H5, knight to b4. And whites can attack. White can play g6 and h6, but basically h6 is a misstep. Knight takes g6 is a refuting move for black that puts black way ahead. Instead played was f takes g6, and with f takes g6, knight to e6, and white wins. So, anyways, very interesting. Yeah, the b4 move was a cool idea. Yeah, we're moving. So yes. who knows? But the main point is that I appreciate everyone being here, and I appreciate that there are free lessons available to everyone who wants them. That's, I think, a really good. I think that's a really good thing, and is helpful. So yeah. Anyways, thanks all for being here, and yeah, it's great to have you all here watching free chess lessons on the stream. Knight to e6. Knight to e6 threatens the queen and the rook on f8, and white wins this game. So let's take a look. That was a pretty good game. That was between two high-level GMs. They played equally until basically the this kind of tactical error by white in the late middle game. But let's take a look at another one from Taimanov. This is another one from the Pro Chess League, yeah, e4 c5. This is interesting. Yeah, Fidel Corrales versus Yu Wang. Oh, really? Interesting. I didn't know that. But that's pretty cool. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome, Lauren. I've heard Toth has some good free resources. So definitely feel free to take a look at that. Those free resources from Toth that I've heard are solid. I don't know much about. I haven't done them myself, but I've heard they're good. Anyways, yeah, so this knight takes d4, knight to c6. This is basically this is a Taimanov Sicilian. Knight c3, queen c7, knight to b5. Okay, so knight to b5 is different than last game. Main line here, bishop to e3. Basically pieces, move like this. Pieces get developed. White can choose to either castle queenside or kingside in this Sicilian and start attacking on the kingside. But this has an earlier attacking move than the previous game. This involves knight to b5. Here, queen to b8. Bishop to e2 is not the main line again for white. Bishop to e3 was the main line. So bishop to e2, but all of them are going to be straightforward white development. Castles, and now we're back into a relatively well-known opening line. Here we have a game where basically 4,600 games are played, and of those 46, basically all but 4 are played with queen to c7 as the next move. This is kind of interesting. I would lean towards b5 here, actually. Let's try to look at why queen to c7 is such a clear mainline favorite. But yeah, if we're looking at this situation, there's actually, we're in a situation where basically this is a common Taimanov position. Queen to c7 is played in virtually all of the games. Here, bishop to d6 is played in very few of the games. So we can take a look. Yeah, no. I mean, look, I'm in favor of any free resources that are available, Lauren. Anything that's free, anything that makes chess tuition free and available to everyone, regardless of their background. I think that's a big plus. And yeah. If a free if a free chess lessons are there, I think that makes the world a better place. So yeah, definitely in favor of any free resources that are available from anyone. Yeah, b4. I mean, b4 is an aggressive play. I don't know. It's an idea. I guess I'm not sure. The answer is b4 was a playable move, and you had a coherent plan behind it. So I think that's a positive. But I don't know if I don't know if that's the strongest. So b4 had a good plan behind it. I don't know if that's a good. It's not the main line is the main idea. So I'm not sure I would advocate b4 over the main line. But the important part is it had an idea behind it, and in that. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. I thought you were talking about that b4 line. B4 line was very interesting. I thought you got a great position out of it. But yeah. Anyways. Okay. So here we have basically a position where there's a very clear. Top line move. It's queen to c7. Basically, this queen is supposed to recover its position on c7. But bishop to d6, king h1, knight takes, queen takes. Basically here, white's looking pretty solid. There's threats on f6, there's threats of b5, but white's going to be able to mobilize an attack. The king is actually has surprisingly good king safety on h1. You can launch an h3, g4 attack with the king on h1. To this point, basically white hasn't started his kingside attack, and here I assume is where it begins. bishop to e5, queen to d3, b5, f4, queen takes, and yeah, basically white's white's in pretty good shape. The kingside attack is advancing. White's doing it without the h3 and g4 pawns, partially because the king is here and partially because this diagonal is open. I think that that white is going to avoid, white is basically going to avoid getting too much, basically white's not going to open up the king side with the g pawn, just because it would create too much pressure for white to defend on that king side. So I think that here, yeah, f5, queen e5, and basically now we're close to equality. The white attack on the king side never really materialized. In this particular case, the white's looking about equal. Going into this endgame, it's two bishops with a worse pawn structure. This should probably be a draw. Assume this is going to play off into a draw. But yeah, this trades off into an equal endgame. So, anyways, very interesting situation. And the thing that I'm looking at here in terms of improving this opening is basically white never really came up with that dynamic in attack. I think that this line in general leads to less of a kingside attack. You're basically, the theory, and we saw what Hansen played basically, is that, you play g4, h4, bishop to e3. You get development with the pawns on the king side, and start a kingside attack. Here, that never really materialized. I mean, the knight starts getting directed towards the queen side, and the value of moving the knight to b5 and disrupting where it was on d4. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's worth, getting the queen to b8 versus c7. I think overall that's not like it's a super helpful thing. The queen is a little bit, displaced on b8, but is that worth a full tempo? Like, I'm not sure. Bishop to e2, and yeah, knight to d4. White's looking fine, but I think that he really needs to move into the aggressive kingside attacking. Otherwise, he's going to end up with a kind of bland game that's likely to draw. So yeah. Oh, I don't know about that, but anyways, this is just some random one that I chose off of the Pro Chess League. But yeah, yeah, the attack on the king side is the correct thematic play. I would refer to the ideas behind the chess openings by Fine. I think that aggressive kingside attacking is definitely what to do. But I think white should have I think white should have done it more aggressively himself in this game. This just sort of feels like a this sort of just feels like a draw. Which is at a GM level and impressive, but anyways, pawn takes, rook to d8, and white basically trades off equally here. So anyways, I think white ends up in a pretty solid position. This looks good. Yeah, it's a draw. It's an opposite colored bishop game draw. So a little bit bland, not as aggressive attacking on the Sicilian as as could have been helpful there. And let's take a look. Let's look at the next one. This is another game from Pro Chess League. And here we go. So e4 c5, Taimanov Sicilian. Black's about to play e6, and he does. So it's Taimanov. Knight to c3, and here as opposed to queen to c7. So basically black has a number of choices here. The main lines for black are queen to c7, knight to f6, a6, and d6. There's 4 main lines and a big break after d6. So this is one that comes out of d6. This is a 2700, so it's a fine line, I'm sure. And basically white can play g3, white can play bishop to e3, and yeah, good threats from white against that. So I'm thinking g3 is what's played here, and I probably would think about playing g3. I don't know if maybe bishop e3 comes first, but g3 is definitely a move that I would play in this game. I would play g3, f4, f5, getting my attack on the Sicilian here. So yeah, g3, knight to f6, bishop to g2, bishop d7. Still in very, now we've sort of transposed into a Schwenigen variation. Schwenigen because it comes with d6 and e6. So Taimanov, cool. Yeah, that's great. That's great, Alexandre. Yeah, the puzzles. I don't know. I haven't talked about it yet on this stream. But I think if you're looking for a way to improve, okay, from 1200 to 2000, I would say in that range. The most efficient study time that you can do is with puzzles. Basically, puzzles come up, tactics come up in every single game. So, it's one of these things where, people make a big deal about getting the openings right. People make a big deal about getting the end games right. Those are all good things. And definitely you'll have to learn that at some point in your chess improvement, in your chess improvement, effort. But the best way that you can improve from 1200 to 1200 to 2000 is really with just very heavy tactical study. So what I would do, Alexandre, if you really want to improve as quickly as possible, do chess.com puzzles, chess.com puzzle rush, and chess.com puzzle battle, or a free tactics trainer of whatever one you like. If you can do that, for an hour or two a day for a month, I guarantee you will improve. It will really, really help your game. Because the thing is, if you're learning opening theory, any specific opening only comes up, 5 or 10% of the time. I mean, it's, in terms of the percentage of times that your opening theory comes up, it's very low relative to, it's very low relative to, how often tactics come up. Tactics come up at pretty much, 75% of every single game. 75% of the game is tactics. So, especially at levels, club level, spending your time on tactics is the most important. A majority of club level games are determined by tactical play. So you really need to be as good as you can do. Yeah, so yeah, that's perfect, Alexandre. So I would say if you want, I would say if you really want to improve as quickly as possible, that's where you should be spending time. An hour or two a day of Lee chess puzzles, I guarantee you will be in a very good position before very long. It will really help you improve. I think it will be very noticeable how much you improve. So yeah, if you do a lot of tactical study, if you and if you stick with it, that's good. Also, tactical study was one of those things. I feel like you can just sort of put music on in the background and zone out doing tactics for like hours. At least I can. That's something that I actually enjoy doing. So yeah, if anyone else, if you're interested in improving as quickly as you can from 1200 to 2000, yeah, I would recommend just putting on music and going against the tactical trainer for an hour or two a day for a month. I really think it will help. That I think offers you the quickest returns at club level. So that's my recommendation there. These guys have now switched from the Taimanov to the Schwenningen Sicilian. That happened when Black played d6. The lines without d6 are the Taimanov lines, and the lines with d6 are the Schwenningen variation. Here, basically still in big theory. Castles, and then bishop to e7, bishop to g5. Here, bishop to g5 is not the normal move. This is a big branch line for white. White can pretty much play whatever developing move he wants. Bishop to g5 is a less explored option, but I'm sure it's not bad. The issue with bishop to g5 is that it can get easily pushed off with h6. With bishop g5 playing into h6, if Black is willing to accept that, accept adding that hook to his post kingside castling position, the bishop has his choice between two choices that he doesn't particularly like. Either bishop takes f6 or bishop to e3. One of those two is fine. But yeah, bishop to g5 and h6 I think will be pretty solid for Black here. That's why I think that bishop to g5 isn't played. Much more popular are moves like knight to b5, making this immediate threat on d6, rook to e1, defending this rook, bishop to e3, knight to b3, a4 could be good. But a lot of good options for white, a lot of good plays for white here, and basically white should be fine. Bishop g5 is a little bit slow, and it runs into h6, which is I think a pretty successful way to kind of push that bishop to do, basically push that bishop into a situation that's not particularly good. So anyways, hey, thank you very much for the follow, Gnome. I appreciate it. Bishop to g2, knight f6, castles, and then bishop to e7. Bishop to g5, castles, and we're basically out of theory, largely as a result of bishop to g5 being kind of an under-researched line. White is still better here. There's nothing wrong with bishop to g5. It's just a, it's just not as direct a route to bishop to e3. I guess maybe Black's logic here is that on h6 he'll play bishop e3, which was the natural developing square for the bishop. But in any case, it ended up in a situation where this bishop ended up on e3, and basically this creates a hook for white to attack. So maybe that's the logic behind bishop to g5. Still not the most popular opening play, but an idea. Knight b5, queen b8. White is fine. Bishop takes. Pawn takes, I think, is necessary. I guess not. Basically here, this is kind of interesting. Black is willing to accept the loss of the pawn on d6 in exchange for not doubling his pawns here, and also in exchange for doubling and isolating white's c-pawns. So here, white trades off, knight plays to d6, and yeah, I'm sort of surprised about Black's play. I would have figured that bishop takes c3 would be a little bit better here. But yeah, ending this this kingside attack. So bishop takes, queen d6, rook to d8. This ended up playing out better for this ends up playing out better for Black. But it's kind of surprising given that white white's just winning that d6 pawn. Yeah, so Black ends up way better. Again, more volatile than I'd expect from GMs. There's a shift of about 4 points here. Yeah. All right, we trade into a draw. Let's take a look at this. I don't think this should have been a draw. I think Black was winning by a lot. So basically it turns from, so here we're basically in, you can see where it turns into, this is the Taimanov, and once, Taimanov basically, I thought it was going to transpose it into the Schwenningen, but okay, I guess not. Okay, queen to b8 defending d6, bishop takes, and then the queen takes d6, and basically that pawn is fine getting lost. This is a really interesting situation. So let's think about this for a bit. So this is mainline Taimanov, and basically this is evaluated as equal, which is sort of surprising to me, right? I would figure that white is now up a pawn, and has threats of like knight to c7 potentially. Actually, probably not. Knight to c7, and you can't really defend the queen that well. But yeah, and the bishop needs to be defended. But here, so rook d8 is the best move to defend this bishop, which is undefended on d7. But if we're really thinking about this position, I really want to take a look at this, because this is evaluated as equal, and it's mainline, so it's probably equal. But white has a, which means that basically Black has positional advantages over white. And that to me is surprising. I look at this position and I don't really say, all right, Black has a, has a big positional advantage that's worth the loss of a pawn. To me, I think, if anything, White has a bishop on a long diagonal, that his knights are further advanced. This queen's a little bit loose there, and also this bishop can play bishop takes c3 and double and isolate the c-pawns whenever he wants. But I would just figure, White is up a pawn. So the eval should be close to a pawn. So I sort of want to go through, just for myself, more, basically just for myself, what we can kind of do in terms of looking at this. Why is Black's eval so good relative to his positional situation? So the first thing is this bishop looks like it's pretty good on this diagonal. And honestly, I don't know the answer to this question. I'm just looking at this position saying, okay, well, white's up a pawn, and the eval's about equal, or maybe slightly better for white, but pretty close to equal. Why is that the case? I don't know. Let's think about the advantages for black positionally, because there have to be advantages for black positionally that are worth at least a pawn here. So bishop is on this this powerful a1 to h8 diagonal. That's definitely an advantage. This bishop is solid, so that's definitely true. These knights, I guess, are probably a liability. With a6, this knight gets pushed to a3, and with bishop takes c3 potentially, which I don't think is the move, but I think that basically this knight can get displaced on a3. So rook to f d1, and then a6, and then queen trades, rook trades, and then knight to d6. But again, here, white is up a full pawn. So, why is the engine considering black to have such a big positional advantage? I think this bishop is part of it. I think that, there might not be a clear route for white to win. I think basically black can go with his standard, 2 pawns versus 3 pawns attack on the queen side and put some pressure on white that way, especially when used in, combination with this bishop on f6. But yeah, it's a really interesting position to think about. I guess this bishop can't really go anywhere, so this bishop's not particularly valuable. It's running into this e4 pawn. Overall, just very interesting. Just a lot to think about in this case. Right? I mean, the eval is equal. So say knight to d. So say knight to d4. They're proposing this is being better for black. Here, I think there's this is a good move for black. This is better than b5. Getting this knight posted on this knight to d4. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you slow those opportunities down, Alexandre, I think you can definitely you can take advantage of your opponent playing too quickly if you want. But anyways, knight to d4, posting the knight at d4. This tends to be good for black. Black is sort of looking at a few different options. So knight to d4, and this is sort of a this looks pretty promising for black. But yeah, f4, knight takes c2, e4 or e5 here, knight takes, and black is winning. But I don't think white needed to be so. I think white could have been much more cautious about his defense here. Anyways, I'm the most curious about these positions right here. Let's try to come up with a strategic plan for black that involves an advantage, since the engine is basically indicating that we have a that black has an advantage here. So this bishop is facing off against a1. That's big. Black can play b5, b4, and end up getting pressure on the queen side here. Knight to e5 might be playable. Knight to d4, which is what happened in the game. Knight to d4 happened in the sideline. This is a great outpost for this knight. With this, black seals basically seals a posting of this knight. He can even play e5 to yeah, that's good. That's good, Alexandra. I think if you can get good wins like that, definitely good stuff. But yeah, so e5 posts this knight on d4, and things are pretty good for black. Black basically has an advantage of about basically has a positional advantage of about a pawn, offsetting his material disadvantage. Black also might have opportunities to win that c2 pawn. So e5, bishop takes e5, and now the material is equal again. Not sure e5 was necessary or best for white. But rook to a b1. It seems like black is banking on getting a pawn back here, but I'm sort of surprised by that too. Like, I would figure that white would be able to come up with a situation in which he doesn't lose a pawn. Black or white gets play on the king side here. And it ends up being a draw. Very high level play. I mean, a very high level play, to be fair, by black to secure a draw in this position. White is winning, yeah. So what's really interesting? So we're looking at the Taimanov, right? So the Taimanov, there's two basically interesting concepts here. First, this mainline sacrifice of d6. That's surprising to me. The fact that this, that black can be so assured that he's going to get a pawn back on the queen side is surprising. I would just figure that this queen to d6, this pawn would not be so difficult for white to maintain. Basically the position is equal with the idea of, or queen takes d6 is an error because it moves the white knight forward. But basically here, white is so assured of winning a pawn on the queen side that I'm surprised that this is considered to be so good for basically that this is considered to be so good for black. I would just figure that white would have some resource to defend this, queen side, either rook to c2 or potentially, I don't know, maybe ideas with knight to e2 and c3. But rook to d2, I think, is better. But yeah, with knight to d4, the eval is good for black, and basically, white can't really catch up. This knight on c2 is getting, or this pawn on c2 is getting lost. Here, black is way up, and white basically does a good job drawing this. This was a big blunder for black. Bishop to d7 was not good. Instead, knight to a5, and black is basically, up an exchange. Very comfortable position. Bishop to d7 leads to a simplification with knight to b7. This hangs this bishop. Bishop to f5, knight takes, and I don't know. White's looking fine here. No big issues. Comfortable position, and white should be good. So, anyways, really interesting situation. White ends up better, white ends up equal. But knight to b7, equalizes the game. So overall, very interesting. We showed two things in this game that were really instructive. Basically, white can basically win that d6 pawn. That's big. And then black can win back the c2 pawn or the e5 pawn on the queen side. So anyways, that was big, that was important, and a demonstration of what can happen in the Taimanov Sicilian. In this situation, basically, white, as opposed to playing on the king side, so, there were those king side against the Sicilian plays, that was big. But here, instead, there's a better play with, there was a better play to win the pawn on d6. This led to a different kind of game with a different focus. But the main ideas in the Taimanov are attacks on the king side. That said, this game was different, and it involved a win of a pawn by white on d6, and then basically recapture of the pawn on c2 by black. Overall, I don't know if this was better than the king side attacks that are common in the Sicilian. We have to think kind of about that. But yeah, that basically that situation where where white is basically attacking in the center versus on the king side, that's a different idea. I would still thematically push for the king side attack in the Taimanov as white if at all possible. But overall, it's great to get some theory into the games. Just so we know, sometimes the most basic stuff is missed. This is the Taimanov. D4, pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, and then e6. This is what's defined as the Taimanov Sicilian e6, knight c6 structure. Cool. On to the games. Thank you very much for everybody for sending the games, and we're going to take a look at these now. Okay, here's another game from TK. TK is playing against an FM. Let's take a look. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, Wrathful. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining the stream. D4, D5, knight F3, C5. Okay. And here, white's looking pretty solid. Basically this is fine. Black can't usually challenge this, challenge this idea, challenge the center so early. Hey, welcome, Smiggy. Thank you for joining the stream. So yeah, c5 is an aggressive move. Not saying it's wrong. One opening that I think is underrated, one opening that I've tried myself and that I like is c5 here. So d4, d5, c4, c5. I actually sort of like this as black. Again, it's a pretty, it's kind of an interesting structure. And it can really succeed in making, black who's playing, or sorry, white who's playing a closed game, a closed queen's pawn game. D4, D5, C4, C5. That can succeed in making, white play an open game. That's often what, D4 and closed game players don't want. So this D4, C4, D5, C5. This is when C5 is playable. C5 against knight f3, I think, is not as good as D4 against C5 against C4. So just in case anyone's interested, I think there's some pretty cool theory in this one. It can be, I don't know how good it is for black necessarily. I think it can trade off, sort of equally. But this variation is actually very interesting. Austrian variation. I didn't know that's what it was called, but basically Queen's Gambit declined Austrian variation. This leads to some very interesting situations where white has to play a much more open position than he had intended to play out of d4. Anyways, what happens in this game? C5 immediately. This is still book, but I think c4. I think the c4 situation is a better opportunity to play c5. Here we get this cube anyways. So basically, this is still that Austrian variation, as if white had responded with knight f3, d takes, e4. C takes, queen takes, knight takes. Overall here, again, we have this kind of situation where white is fine, but I sort of like this as an idea for black just because it forces a d4 player to play an open game. I think that's big. I think there's a lot of value in doing that practically. If you can get people to play games that are stylistically not what they're the most comfortable with and not what they've played an opening to try to play, I think that's something that has value. Yeah, sure. Feel free. I'll give you the link to the Discord. Sorry, I'll give you the link to the Discord, and you can just submit it, Adrian. Hey, Adriana. Yeah, you can just submit on the Discord here, on the game submission section, and I'll confirm that pretty soon. I have a bunch of games that I need to confirm. But I'll do that today between the streams. So yeah, I was just very busy yesterday, so I didn't quite get the opportunity to confirm everything. But yeah, here knight takes d4, e5, knight to b5. Knight to b5 threatens knight to c7. That's important. Yeah, white's basically I think knight a6 is considered to be less good than king to d8, but I have to think knight to a6 is what's played here. Knight to a6 is a developing move that defends c7. I prefer knight to a6 to king to d8, even though the engine prefers king to d8. I think knight to a6 is probably a better way to play this. So basically an interesting game. This came out of an early c5 transposing into a knight f3. Something out of the Austrian, or transposition that's possible out of the Austrian variation. But basically, I like the way that black has played this. So far, this has all made sense to me. Let's just go back and take a look. I think all of this, all of this play by black makes a lot of sense. You get a lot of practical value out of forcing white, who's a d4 player, to play an open game. That's what I think is the biggest advantage of blacks here, is just creating a situation where giving white an unusual situation creates a practical edge. Knight a6 is fine. Bishop d7 is fine. So far, I think we're still probably even an opening book. Not quite, but basically, black is very comfortable here. Ideas like bishop to b4 can be good for black. Ideas like b6 can be good for black. But yeah, basically bishop to b4. And this is solid. Bishop to b4, knight takes e4. This could be a good opportunity for black to play. Bishop to b4 is considered to not be as good as rook to c8. With rook to c8, you're seizing an open file with the rook with tempo. So I think this is an improvement, rook to c8 over bishop to b4. With rook to c8, you do have to worry about this a6 pawn, and you are going to have to, come up with a defensive resource for that. But developing your rook to an open file with tempo is very rarely going to be an error. Let's just look at the rook to c8 line. On rook to c8, bishop to e2, and then the move that black does to counter a7 is knight to b4. With knight to b4, this knight is threatening c2 again with tempo, and on knight takes a7, rook takes c3, pawn takes knight c2, king d2, and then actually better than knight takes a1 here. Knight takes e3, pawn takes e3. And then bishop to c5, winning this knight. That's actually how you do that. Kind of interesting. Here, I'm still kind of curious. Let's just look one or two moves. Rook hb1, knight takes e4, king e1, and b6, as opposed to bishop takes. Because on basically there's a big tactical issue here, which is that on bishop takes a7, rook takes b7 is comfortable. b6 lets the knight out, and what black will be down in exchange, but have a attack on this c3 pawn and get enough compensation for that in exchange, at least a pawn, maybe 2 pawns. Anyways, kind of an interesting sideline. Just I wanted to look at that. Queen takes e5, knight a6, and basically here, white is solid. But rook to c8, seizing this long file against or with tempo where the bishop has to move. That's a valuable play for black. Bishop to b4 is probably fine. Here in this situation, white has a positional advantage, but the cool, yeah, no, we'll take a look at it, Adriana. Thank you very much for sending the game. So yeah, f3 defending e4. And rook to c8, but basically white has a positional, or white has a material advantage here. The pawn that got lost for black was this pawn is equal. Awesome, yeah, thanks, Miggy. I was just really busy yesterday, unfortunately. I have a class and I have tests that I'm studying for. I'm studying for the Certified Ethical Hacker exam. But yeah, I was very busy yesterday, but today I should at least have time to confirm everyone's games. Sorry about that. I usually try to get them confirmed the day of, but today I was a little bit delayed. So yeah, no, I don't. I'm an ethical hacker, certified ethical hacker. That's the exam that I'm studying for, and it's cool. There's some good material on there. One of the things that I like doing is I like doing this. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, chicken. No, honestly, I have a small business that requires a I have a small business that requires a good security. So I'm using it just for my personal business. I don't actually hack people, but I do have the ability to prevent hacks, which is the good, supposedly the good goal. And even then, I have the ability to prevent hacks to the degree that that the educational resources that I've gone through have provided. I'm sure great hacks could still, basically, if enough resources are thrown at a hacking problem, they're pretty hard to stop. Anyways, one of the things that I learned from my hacking class is actually this method of realistically I probably knew this before, but one of the things that this is called I think this is called Google hacking, but basically this method of searching for things on Google, this very efficient idea, can be very helpful in quickly finding resources on Google. Specifying file type, you can also specify site and domain. So if you look at like site, apple.com, file type PGN, you can sometimes get resources pretty quickly like this. Like let's say we were drawing from something where there was more stuff available. Here, there's just basically the open source PGN code for I think it's a chess app. This is just like an opening book, but yeah, this type of thing is this is a hacking tool if you ever need it. So this is the kind of thing. This is not a hack, or this is not hacking anyone, but it is very efficiently getting the result that you want. So, anyways, the hacking courses that I've taken have been very helpful in kind of in kind of teaching these types of things. Anyways, always make sure that you follow the law. Following the law is very important, and I follow the law. So, anyways, knight to e6. So yeah, so basically, white ends up with a good positional advantage here. Material is equal. The pawn structures are symmetrical, and yeah, NASA PDF files, exactly. There might be some. You never know. F3. Yeah. So how do you get out of this? So white's up by about a pawn. F3. Yeah, I guess I would say rook fc8 is probably good. But yeah, rook to c8, right. I think rook to c8 was your biggest improvement, TK. This faces off against this bishop on c4. Yeah. So that's a slight improvement. Anyways, how else do you do this? Basically with f3 is an inefficient move. It's not needed to be played here. Basically, I guess that with the idea is that f3 defends so that, on a move other than f3, so say rook a d1, or rook a d1 is the computer line. I was thinking bishop takes, knight takes e4. So I guess this is the logic in terms of what white is trying to defend against. But knight takes e4, and then bishop to d5 forks this pawn on b7 and this knight on e4. So the pawn is never really at risk because as as necessary, white can play bishop to d5. So f3 is an inefficiently played move by white. And yeah, I think rook to c8 is a rook to c8 now with the f rook. So not even the a rook. This controls an open file with your rook, and it does it with tempo because it's attacking this bishop. b3, knight to c2, bishop takes, knight takes, and yeah. Basically, white is fine. Black is fine. White still has the initiative, and I think probably trading off the bishops has to be correct. There's extra value for white in having the bishop pair in addition to just one of the bishops. So the advantage of a bishop pair versus a bishop and a knight is larger than a bishop versus a knight. It's again situationally dependent, but in most cases. King to e3, rook to c5, a4. And basically, yeah, this sideline is good for, this sideline is good and equalizes for black. In the game, rook to c8, bishop to e2, bishop takes. I think rook to c8 was better. After bishop takes c3, you're trading off black's good square. So I think this is the move that's worth revisiting in this game. Here white has an acceptable level of advantage, but after you trade off your good squared bishops and no longer have the bishop pair, I think things go much worse for white. Let's see if there is ever kind of a recovery here, but I don't think there necessarily was. Yeah, so that sideline, that earlier rook fc8, I think was an improvement. But the real thing that shifted the eval in this game was this bishop takes c3 move. It just doesn't help black, is the point. You had the bishop pair has some value, the engine here is suggesting bishop takes b5, bishop takes b5, knight takes b5, and here you get to play rook to c2. Again, you're giving up the bishop pair, but you probably have the ability to play bishop to c5, trading off white's bishop pair as well. So yeah, I mean, I guess I would say here the real key move, the error here was bishop takes c3, knight takes c3. and here white is white is basically better. So I think that was the error. Instead bishop takes b5, and then on bishop takes you play bishop. I think you play bishop takes c3 here. Actually, they're saying bishop to c5 is better. That makes sense. Bishop to c5, trading off this bishop against this bishop, makes sense. But yeah, this line, bishop takes c3 was an error. The bishop to trade for the knight was bishop takes b5, because then you get opportunities of like c2, rook to c2 once the knight takes, or you get bishop to c5 if the bishop takes. So that was the key part. That was the key part there, TK. That was the most, the move in the game that changed things the most. Rook to c8 was also an improvement over bishop to b4, but the real shift in the game happened when there was about a 2-point swing here. Bishop takes b4 and black is good. So, anyways, that's an improvement. Definitely keep that in mind. And yeah, I think that was the key part of that game. Bishop takes c simplifies, and this knight, basically this knight is dealt with easily. This bishop trade off for this knight, leaves white without the bishop pair as well. So you're sort of equal. Also, rook to c2 can be a tactic that threatens to win a pawn. So that was the key move there. Thank you very much for sending the game. No, I mean, there's no problem at all. I haven't played these lines a whole lot either, to be completely honest. I like, thank you very much for, but I think it's more a conceptual thing than a main line. Basically, if we want to look at this in the simplest way, basically you want to trade this bishop off for this bishop, so this bishop trades off for this bishop, as opposed to this bishop trades off for this knight. Here you're exchanging dark squared bishops, which you can do with bishop to c5. But with bishop takes c3, you're trading this bishop for that knight, and that knight wasn't particularly strong. It wasn't even the most advanced knight for white here. So I think trading off the bishops leads to a more equal position than trading off the bishop for the knight. So anyways, that's what I would say there. And then rook to c8, and yeah, things are things are good. So that's my idea. I think that's better. And I think that bishop to c5 instead of bishop to e2, that's a big improvement. Anyways, this change of about 2 pawns, that's a big that's a big shift against black. So bishop to c5, trading off bishops instead. In terms of the opening, I like the opening. I like c5 here too. I particularly like c5 if c4 has been played. c5 against knights to f3 is playable, but the really good situation that comes up with an early c5 is this one. I like this. This is the Austrian. This is basically the Austrian game, and this one is a lot of fun to play as black. And basically, we'll turn things into a game, basically an open game after d4. Yeah. But I think you're fine. I think basically this is nothing to be afraid of. It's black. This cube or this square of pawns here, this is a not bad for black at all. And it'll turn a d4 game into an open game, which is a big deal actually. I mean, making a d4 player play an open game is something that has value to black. Cool. Thank you very much for sending the game, TK. I hope that's helpful. Thanks for sending all the games. I'm always you send a lot, and I'm always very happy to go over them. So yeah, please feel free to keep sending games. We'll make them part of the stream. I try to not make it so that more than each person doesn't get more than one on a single stream. But please keep sending games. I'm super happy to take a look at whatever you send in. So yeah, that was interesting. That was a game. I guess that was a game against an FM, and yeah. Thank you very much for sending it in, TK, and thank you for sending in all the games that you send in. Very helpful, and always appreciated that you're providing material for the stream. Cool. So here's Amet versus Diver Leo. I think Diver Leo was actually the one that sent this in, but this is 2 people who or wait, maybe Amet sent this one, and then the next one was from Diver Leo. Or maybe did both people send in games? Oh, I think two people sent in the same game here. That's kind of interesting. I should have caught that, I guess. Oops. Yeah, my bad. Okay, yeah, two people sent in the same game. All right. So, knight c3, bishop to c4, knight f6, and d6, bishop to e3, and h6 here. Okay. So, all right, guys. Since we have an extra minute, does anyone want to play a simul? Here's what I was thinking we could do. Just since I messed up and that we have an extra an extra slot, what we can do is yeah. So let's do a simul. How many people do you think we have? We have at least like 5. Okay. So what? How about this? How about we play? How about everyone challenges me to 5 minutes with a 10-second increment on chess.com. My screen name is Ted Belanoff on chess.com, and you can just challenge me to a 5-minute game with a 10-second increment, and we'll start the simul in about 15 minutes. No, I think let's keep this one small, Anch. This is just one that I wanted to do just since we have a 15 minutes free. But yeah, we can just do a quick simul since I messed up and I posted the same game twice. But yeah, let's keep this one small, not a big simul. Let's just do like the people who are here on the stream. So yeah, 5 minutes with 10-second increment. Smiggy's first, and then I don't know. I was thinking maybe like we'll see how many people are on the stream, but let's not advertise this one. Let's just keep it small. Just to fill up that spot that I didn't do correctly. So yeah, D3. So basically, this is a Mets game versus Diver Leo. Both of these guys sent in the same game. I should have checked that. So I gave them both slots. Okay, so let's look at this opening. All right, we're up to 2. I'm hoping this may be too quick. If there get to be too many people, this will be too quick a time control. But 5-10. If everyone wants to challenge, feel free to challenge me on 5 minutes with 10-second increment. So this is the Vienna game. Knight to c6, bishop to c4, knight to f6, and basically White's got a solid advantage. This is the two knights response. They call this the Vienna hybrid variation. Okay, I didn't know that's what it was called, but all right. This is completely fine. Basically no side is at an advantage here. D3, D6, bishop to E3. Yeah, all right, we're up to 3. Cool. Thanks for the challenge, Ansh, Samson, Jwani, and Smiggy. Thank you all very much for challenging. And we're up to 4. It's got to be 5 minute with 10-second increment. Alexandre, if you want to send, if you can make a small adjustment, because I think this is just a 5 minute game. Yeah, no worries, no problem at all. No, it's always, yeah, Simul always has a bunch of people who do that, so don't worry about it at all. So yeah, so here, what's better for each side? I think basically White is solid. This is a solid setup for White. I think White can do things like knight f3. I think White can do a3, and in general, I think that there can be good positions here. Bishop e6, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight to e2, d5, pawn takes, and basically Black is good. I think this was a good way of for Black to basically straighten out the center. D5 was a good idea, is best, and e takes d5 is best. Interesting. F4. Yeah, F4 probably is a good resource to challenge the center as White. So yeah, let's look. Well, F4 is definitely common in the Falkbeer variation, right? The most common Vienna game line is knight f6, knight f3, knight f6, f4, and then d5 here. And this is the common f4, e4, d5, f5. So yeah, this I think should be pretty good for White. But once we transpose into a more mainline Vienna game, I think f4 still should be playable. I think you're right. I think I think f4 definitely should be playable here. F4 is the most common line here on move 5. But after bishop to e3, I guess there's not really much to draw from. So f4, yeah, you're probably right. f4 probably is right even after bishop to e3. The only thing about f4 is that it can make bishop to e3 inefficient after after bishop to e3 is played. Yeah, for sure. For sure. F4, pawn takes F4. Wow, all right, cool. We're up to 6. 6 games here. This is going to be intense, actually. We'll see how that simul goes. But yeah, cool. We've got 6 players here, and we'll be ready to go in a few minutes. Bishop to e3, h6, bishop to or f3, pawn takes, and basically black is kind of expanding in the center here. Black has got a slight advantage. d5 is a big threat that white's going to have to deal with. White probably should play d4 here. Alternative is bishop to f2. And d4, yeah, d4 is correct because d4 by black needs to be stopped. So d4, queen d6, and white is fine. Best here was bishop to d6. Bishop to d6 is a straightforward developing move. Bishop to b4 is also a good developing move, but I think black should play a developing move here. Queen to d6 just misplaces the queen, to be honest, and it blocks off the development of this bishop to its most natural squares. So I think an improvement for black here is either bishop to d6 or bishop to b4. So here, black's about equal. But bishop to d6, that's the first thing that I would play differently in this game, either bishop to d6 or bishop to b4. Since this e5 pawn is defended anyways, you might as well just develop. Also here, one key aspect of bishop to d6, pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5, bishop to b4, and you get that discovery on the queen. So it's not as if bishop to d6 hangs the d5 pawn. That's just important to talk about. Queen to d6, castles, queen takes, queen h5, knight to b5. How many games do we have here? It looks like we've got about 7. Cool. I think 7 should be doable, but it's going to be really quick. Much more than that, and we're pushing it. But 7, I think we should be all right with. King to b8, and now white has a big advantage. So black's errors here in terms of this game. First, queen to d6 is not fundamental. Just play bishop to d6. If you want to defend the e pawn, bishop to d6 does it successfully, and the d5 pawn's never hanging. Queen to d6 stunts the black square development. Bishop to d6, okay. And then the real error for black comes after queen takes d4. Now white's going to have all these threats on the king side. Things like c4, rook to c1 are going to be possible, and black's king safety here is really a problem. Here, white should basically just start pushing aggressively on the queen side. White's also up a piece. That's a very important. That's a very important thing. White basically black hangs. White starts attacking on the king side, and then black hangs the knight on f6. I don't think there's much value in looking at this game after knight to f6. But the places that I really want to talk, and let's just see how this plays out. Yeah, okay, so white wins comfortably. So improvements in this game. I thought white played the Vienna game relatively well, and then black basically, black plays queen d6, which is an inefficient move, and then basically gets attacked very aggressively by the white pieces. Bishop to d6 doubles and isolates this pawn, and instead here, I think white should just basically, or black should just basically give up the c7 pawn and play d4. Here, knight takes c7, and sure, yeah, that wins a pawn, but this isn't as if it's a huge advantage for this isn't a huge advantage for white. So anyways, basically black pays for this queen d6 inefficiency with knight to b4, and then once that's happened, giving up the c7 pawn is what the engine suggests, and what is objectively the best here. So queen d6 essentially gives up the c7 pawn, which is a problem for sure. And then bishop to d6 makes the situation a lot worse with with doubling and isolating these d pawns. Now black's kingside is very open, and white can easily convert on these kingside threats. So overall, the move that I would focus on the most in this game, things all sort of made sense. I thought d5 was a good move by black. I thought that made sense. Queen to d6 was the error, though. Bishop d6 is objectively better. And here, when knight to b5 and playing up against knight to c7, it is actually, black is still leading after a move like d4. Giving up the c7 pawn isn't that important. It doesn't further compromise the king side, but basically giving up the c pawn in this way, and having c4, rook to c1 as a resource to attack the king, that's something that is more valuable to white. So now white gets this kingside attack, black loses a piece to the kingside attack, and white wins. So anyways, very interesting game. Thank you very much for sending it, both Ahmet and Diver. Very interesting game. I think really the key parts there were queen to d6, blocking off the bishop's natural development, and then playing bishop to d6, after the knight is on b4, giving you doubled isolated pawns and white the ability to attack on the king side. Those are the two places where I think that the game was decided. Other than that, I thought you guys played the Vienna game fairly reasonably. And yeah, I really appreciate you sending the games in. Thank you both very much for sending that game in. I should have caught that it was the same game from both of you guys. And with that, I think we can start the simul. All right, we've got 6. And if anyone wants to play in the simul, I was going to start these all off in, say, 30 seconds. If there's any more games, this one is going to be really fast, so I don't think that I'll have quite the same opportunity to take more people in. If people challenge, I'll see, but yeah, I would recommend challenging now if you can. We have 6 games going. I can probably do somewhere, I mean, we'll see. I can probably do up to 10 with this time control, but yeah, feel free. Please send games in, or please send in challenges of 5 minute with 10 seconds. If there's anybody else there, I can take in those challenges too. Ant very helpfully reminds me to play the first 2 moves before I move on to the next game. Otherwise they abort. So I'm going to do that. Good call. All right, so we're up to 8. All right, time to go. 8, and yeah, I have to play the first 2 moves. That I remember. Okay, so Smiggy's all right. Okay. Okay, we're on 3. And we're at 4. Okay, this is number 6, I think. This is number 7. And this is the last one. Thank you all very much for joining, and thank you all very much for playing in this game. This is very interesting. Yeah, so we got 8. 8 is good. Considering we did this spur of the moment, very good. I'm very happy with 8 players. Yeah, all right, here we go. 8 in play. Good luck, everyone. Thank you all very much for joining, and yeah, we'll take a look at this. This should be interesting. I'm not sure I got the time control right, but it's actually super helpful because I'll know a little bit better how to set the time control the next time. Okay, so seeing a lot of I'm seeing mostly e4 openings. Some of them are the French. I think I played e4 against everybody. I don't think I switched it up at all. Yeah, good luck, everyone. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure how to do that, to be completely honest, Anch. On chess.com, I don't know how to do that. I think you can do it on Lichess, right? But I should figure out how to do that on chess.com. I completely agree. Uh, but we can still play like this. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think that yeah, slow time control games can tend to be helpful. I mean, basically putting this, enough thought into each move, that can be, that is an important part of chess. So yeah, I think a mix TK is probably a good idea. Um, let's see. This one against Joseph is kind of interesting. I'm not sure exactly how this goes. I almost played a. I actually. I almost played. Actually, I almost played a bit queen takes c2 in that game against game against Joseph Floria. That would have been an issue. Um, uh, let's see. Good game, Alexandre. Yeah, we're doing another simul, as early as next Tuesday. Thank you very much for joining this one. This was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. But thanks very much for playing, Alexandre. And thanks all very much for being here and for playing in the simul. Let's see. Sam Sejuani's got has got a pretty good position here. I'm getting nervous about Sam Sejuani's game, to be completely honest. No, thanks very much, Alexandre. The next simul is on Tuesday. Next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Eastern. So basically the same time as this, except on next Tuesday, 5 days from now. I don't know. I mean, we could end up randomly doing this again. Before then, but yeah, there's definitely another simul coming next Tuesday. So I definitely think you should play in that one, and that would be yeah, that would be cool. But yeah, I want to make doing simuls a regular thing. I think it's really cool that you can. So yeah, so I was thinking that we would at least do them once a week, and then if they come up, if we get a good opportunity, maybe we can do them at other times too. Um, I think Sam Sejuani had a pretty good aggressive attack going. I was getting nervous. It was nervous, but I think I got a little bit lucky in this one. Um, Anch's game is complicated. I'm not sure exactly what to think in Anch's game. Let's see. Hey, welcome Possibilities. Thanks very much for joining the stream. We're doing a simul right now. I think there's about 8 players. Good game, Sansejwani. Thanks very much for joining in on the simul. Yeah, next simul next simul at least scheduled is on Tuesday. Is on Tuesday at 8 a.m. Let's see. I'm not sure. Let's see. These positions are tricky. Yeah, that kingside attack does look sort of dangerous. I'm just looking at Smiggy's game. Honestly, I think I might have set the time control wrong. Like, I think this might be too slow. Maybe you should have gone with 5 minute with 5 second. All right, 6 games left, and yeah, here we go. Some very interesting games going on. Let's think. I think I'm about equal. There's none where I'm super scared at the moment. Actually, this one's pretty good. The one that Joseph Florio's playing is that's shaping up to be a pretty interesting game. Yeah, see, F5 looks like a good idea for sure. I think that makes a lot of sense for white. Yeah, Joseph Florio's game. He looks pretty. I think he's in the lead at the moment. Yeah, I'm gonna have to fix that F5 pawn because that connected pass pawn is a problem for sure. This one too, Kathleen also has a good position. I'm down some pawns. Interesting. Okay. Yep, makes sense. Um, uh, I don't know. I still think I don't think I'm gonna win all of these, to be completely honest. I'm trying, but a lot of people are getting good positions. It's sort of, uh, yeah. These are tough games. So far I haven't. So far I haven't missed any. I haven't hung any pieces, so at least there's a more of a victory there. Um, but yeah, I think between Kathleen and Joseph, there's two very good games where I think I'm having some troubles. All right, 6 games left. Very interesting. Um, oh, good move. I did not see that. Knight to h5. Yeah, that's a difficulty. Okay. Okay, good game, Smiggy. Thank you very much for joining the stream. I needed to get revenge after the win in the last simul. But yeah, thank you very much for the game, Smiggy. Yeah, really, no, really, a good game, and thank you very much for playing. The next stream is at 8 a.m. Or 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, so 5 days from now. But yeah, thanks, Smiggy. Thanks for the game again. I want to warn everyone, if you beat me in one of these, I will pay extra attention to your game on the next time. So that's just something to consider. That's what happened on that one. But that is definitely true. Just FYI. That's what happened to Electric Horse last time. If you beat me, I will pay attention to your extra attention to your game the next time. That is true. That much is true. I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I don't know. I tend to go. I mean, the last one I lost about 4 games, so I think a lot of people. I think you definitely do have a chance. Cool. Good game, Neo Federalist. Thank you very much for joining the simul, and we're down to 4 here. Thanks. Thanks. Good game. Good game, Chicken of Bristol. Thank you very much for everyone very much for joining the simul. This was interesting. Let's see. Still some very good games going on here. Joseph Florio games 2 is interesting. Let's see. No, it's really. I mean, it's fun though. Hopefully. But these games are really. There's some good games against going on at the moment. I'm not gonna win all of these. I would be very surprised if I won all of these. Kathleen's game in particular is Kathleen's and Joseph Florio. I think are the two with the best chances at the moment. I'm just happy I haven't hung any pieces. I think I can play there. I'll think about how to play a simul. I should come up with a lesson of like how to play a simul, because I definitely think there's some tricks that might be helpful to win in a simul in particular. Like if you set up like a complicated tactical thing that has a single move every time, that would be difficult to play against. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I have some ideas actually on that topic, Anch, for sure. No, I definitely do think there's some things that I could come up with on how to win one of these that I think would work pretty well. Joseph Florio's game is looking pretty solid. I'll try that. Whatever. I don't know. Yeah, Joseph Florio's got that knight. Got my knight pretty stuck. That's gonna be difficult. Oh, an f3. Okay. Yeah, f3 looks forced there. Very interesting games. I'm not sure how the time is going to play out. I think I need to play a little faster too. I still think Kathleen has a. I still think you're better though, Kathleen. To be completely honest, I think you have a pretty solid position. Like I think you're still up at least one pawn, right? Yeah, you're still up. You're still up 2 pawns. You're all right, Kathleen. I don't feel too. I don't feel too worried. I think Black's probably better in your game. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I think she's got a very good position. Good game, LeBlat. Thank you very much for joining the stream. Thanks for joining the simul. Yeah, good game, LeBlat. Thanks for playing. Down to 3 games. Good game. Thanks for the game, Anch. Thank you very much for playing in the simul. This is fun. Hopefully, wow. Okay, Kathleen got a really. Or let's see how bad that is for me. That looks pretty bad for me. Kathleen got a really good move, and I feel like bishop to d2 is my only response in Kathleen's game. Good game, Anch. Thank you very much for playing. Really appreciate it. We were gonna talk about something today. I will text, or I'll send you a message later today. But I'm very excited about that team match, Anch, and we can we'll talk about figuring that out for this weekend. But yeah, thanks for playing, Anch. Two games left. Kathleen looks like she's got a good position in this. I think Kathleen's got some pretty good chances. I know, I do. I definitely do. Like, she keeps playing very strong games. I think, yeah, no, for sure. Oh, did I mess this up? I might have messed up this game. Well, what happened here? I think I confused myself. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, Joseph Floria's position's looking better, better every move. two really tough games here. I think you guys both are going to win, to be honest. I think both Joseph and Kathleen have very good winning chances. Which I'm actually I'm completely fine with that. That means I went 6-2, which is probably about right. That's about I'm not unhappy with that outcome. I think that'll be I think that's about right. Let's see. Bishop to a5, I think. I mean, I think I'm in trouble. I think I'm in trouble. I think that Joseph's gonna keep being able to increment his time. I think it's gonna be 6-2. Cool. All right, I'm gonna resign that one against Joseph. Good job, Joseph. Good game. Good playing. Nicely done. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you very much for playing in the simul, Joseph. And yeah, hope to see you again. We're doing another simul on Tuesday at 8 a.m. So we'll be ready for a rematch then, hopefully. But thanks for the game, Joseph. Good playing. Good job. All right, we're on the last one, and Kathleen has a very solid position. Yep, good move. Knight e5, I think, should get this pretty close to being over. Yeah, I think Kathleen's gonna win this. I bet the eval on this game is pretty strongly in favor of black at this point. Yep. All right, good game, Kathleen. Another win for Kathleen. I'm definitely gonna have to pay extra attention to my game against Kathleen because that's the second simul in a row where she's beaten me. But very good game, Kathleen. Nicely played. I think there were a lot of interesting things in here. Yeah, very good game, Kathleen. Thank you. Thank you so much for playing, and thank you all very much so much for joining in that simul. That was really fun. Final record of 6-2 with losses to Kathleen and Joseph. Congratulations to Kathleen and Joseph for winning the for winning in the simul. And yeah, I hope to see everyone again. Next simul that we're doing for sure is going to be Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And yeah, I'm really that was really fun, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in future simuls and in future lessons. But yeah, really interesting game, Kathleen. Definitely, yeah, black got a good advantage and maintained it the whole game. Basically 2 pawns up quickly, and this played out great. So yeah, thanks so much for playing, everyone. Thank you so much for the strong games, 6-2. All right, so that means that the time control was about right, and yeah, it gives me a lot to think about before the next simul on Tuesday. Cool. Thanks so much, everyone, for playing. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the lesson. And yeah, next lesson is at 9:35 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Yeah, that's in about 12 hours or so. Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you all very much for joining the stream and for joining the simul. And hope to see you all again soon. Yes, the simul is at 8 a.m. The 8 a.m. The morning session on I guess it's June the 8th. Morning session on June the 8th. So 8 a.m. at June the 8th. But yeah, great games by everybody. Great playing, everyone, and congratulations to the winners, and thank you all very much for playing. So yeah, thanks all for being here. Thanks all for playing in this. And next stream is in about 12 hours at 9:35 p.m. Eastern time. Have a good game, everyone, or have a good day, everyone. And yeah, I'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.